This occurred over 20 years ago, but is still fresh in my mind. My son was born early at 32 weeks. We were lucky and he had few issues. We were able to bring him home a month after he was born. He came home on oxygen and caffeine due to bradycardia. Once we were home, strange things began to happen. The cat refused to go in his room, and before he was born, I was forever removing our cat from his room. Our dog would sit at the bottom of the stairs and tilt his head as if he was listening to something. I would be changing his diaper and start talking as I thought his dad just came into the room, only to turn and find out I was alone. A friend gave him a peekaboo big bird toy that would say peekaboo when you covered, and then uncovered its eyes. This toy would go off all the time, even after I put it into a box in the closet. I often felt I was not alone in that house. My parents had given us an Angel Care baby monitor as a gift. This had a pad that was placed under the mattress and an alarm would sound if it did not detect any movement after a certain amount of time. As our son was tiny, only 5 pounds when he came home, this alarm would often go off. I would wake up, walk into his room, turn it off and check on him. He was always fine. I never felt that it was anything but the fact he was so tiny that the pad didn't pick up his breathing. During this time I would often dream of a woman I would find in his room. I never saw her directly, but would dream I saw the shadow of a woman with long hair standing and reaching into his crib. The dreams never scared me, but I did find them very odd but comforting at the same time. I can't remember how long he had been home, but it was at least a month. He was still on oxygen and still on caffeine. Our bed was to the left of our bedroom door, and I slept on the right-hand side next to the door, while my husband slept on the left-hand side. I was asleep and was woken up by being shaken roughly on the door side of the bed. I woke up and looked over at my husband and said, "Why are you shaking me?" Only to realize he was completely asleep and on the wrong side to have shaken me. I immediately jumped up and ran to my son's room. I flipped the light on, something I had never done to this point, and heard a gasp from the crib. Often when babies spontaneously stop breathing, you just need to startle them to begin again. I truly believe that he had stopped breathing and me turning on the light startled him into breathing again. After this episode, the dreams and strange occurrences with the pets and toy continued until my son came off the oxygen and caffeine. Once that happened, the odd occurrences stopped. The pets stopped acting weird and the big bird toy never went off on its own again. I believe that someone came home with him to keep him safe. The feeling I got from my dreams was it was a young woman, maybe early to mid-20s and indigenous. I'm Canadian. I will always be grateful for them watching over him and shaking me awake that night, saving my son. I came back to my hometown for the holidays. It's a fairly rural area with woods, and everything is just peaceful. I loved going to pick wild berries, and when I went to do just that, I encountered the first paranormal experience of my life. It happened in the backyard of my neighbor. There are wild berry shrubs there. Here are a few details so that the story makes sense. I used to have an old man who lived alone as my neighbor, and he was a very kind person. He used to give us those berries as candied sweets. He passed away due to cardiac failure when I was in high school, and his house is empty ever since. I wanted to make those sweets for my family as a holiday comfort food, and thus went to his place. Now, as he passed a few years ago, there was a lot of undergrowth and wild grass in his yard, and everything was messy. I cleared some of them and made way to the shrubs, cleaning the place as much as I could, thinking about how clean he used to keep everything. All this time, I had a feeling that something was off, and that I was being watched, but I just brushed it off. I was 2 minutes into picking when I heard my neighbor's voice, I'm sure it was him, saying that I should be more careful and to pick up the rake immediately. It was as if I was fainting. Everything was fast or slow, I can't really explain it. But as soon as I had picked up the rake, some homeless man tried to stab me with a knife, but I quickly used the sharp end of the rake to scare him off and started shouting at him, making him ran off soon after. After I gathered myself, I had tears but couldn't shake off a smile I had. It was eerie, but I am unharmed. I think I'm going to clean my neighbor's place. I owe him that much.